All right, folks. Just in the interest of time, what we'll do is I'll just make a few comments to set up, and then if the panelists wouldn't mind just joining right away, we can save some time. I'm going to ask each panelist to say a few words, and then we'll kick it off. We only have 30 minutes, but just to kick things off, and thank you, Alok, for helping me set this up. I think that there's a sort of dissonance between human and machine learning today. So let me explain. So I want to show you a video of a personalized foundation model being created in real life. All right, so let's see if that works. And I thought this video, which hopefully will play now.
In just 3 weeks.
Yeah, this is the video.
But this is where spiders and cats differ. Though physically the cats are now quite developed, their predatory programming is incomplete. Now, to start developing the mind. First, their instinct makes them curious. Instinct makes them play. Play links body with mind. They start to look like predators, focused, fast, alert. But at this stage, the rules are simple. Catch anything that moves. After all, they could be anywhere, and anything could be prey. But a cat can't live on feathers and stones. This simple instinct needs a focus. Enter Mother. She now comes back from hunts with dead prey. This is the new focus of the kitten's play. The kittens get what she can catch, a sample of the world of prey outside.
You get the idea. I mean, basically what happens is then the mom brings not so dead mice, and eventually the kitten learns. And to me, it seemed like an extraordinary example of embodied intelligence.
She's programmed.
Okay. So I think the real problem we have with AI right now is it's obviously an incredible new capability. It's just game-changing. It is wonderful. It's frightening. But the tragedy is, and I think some of you heard me talk about it, we're spending more now on machine learning than on human learning. The White House budget for human learning was $80 billion in the Biden era. It'll go to zero now, by the way. That's a whole other story. And the cost of training a model is in the range, it's going to be in the range of billions of dollars very soon. And that's not that's not counting the electricity costs. And people don't understand it and worry. And society is trying to figure out what this new thing is. The fact is that people don't understand that these machine learning models have a very limited context window. 200,000 tokens, 1 million tokens. But human beings have a magnificent context window. I mean, the conversation outside, the smell, the taste of something, right? Something we heard yesterday, something we saw that's irrelevant, but actually is relevant. And I don't think we are giving that credence, nor are we calling it out, and introducing AI into the economy without thinking that through. The uncanny valley. This is a video of a humanoid robot delivering food, and I found it utterly terrifying. Okay, and I think this is one of the problems society faces, which is the uncanny valley. All these things that are supposed to look human, but they're not. And then, of course, the impact potentially on job loss. You probably saw Dario Amodeo talk about entire categories of entry-level and mid-level jobs vanishing. And finally, the tragedy of the commons. I mean, basically, we have corporate titans, right, trying to automate jobs Whereas many of us know that there's this thing called Jevons paradox, which is that in the long term, AI might take jobs away, but more jobs will be created. But in the short term, we are facing a very difficult and controversial time. So with that, I'd like to go to our amazing panel. We have Armando. I looked for a picture of Armando in a suit, and I couldn't find one, you should know. But I did find pictures of the other three panelists in suits, and I put them there. So we'll have Armando, Archon, Genoa, and Wang. And what we'll do is, Hai, and we'll kick it off just with a few, like 2 or 3 minutes from each, and then we'll go to a dynamic exchange. So with that, let me ask Armando to kick it off. Your thoughts, sir, and be as provocative as possible.
Sure. One of the things that has changed quite a bit in recent years is that suddenly you don't have to convince people in companies, for example, that they would like to use AI, right? Everybody wants to use AI for everything, right? But the problem is they try the tools that are available and they find them lacking for many things, right? They don't quite have the precision. They don't quite have the repeatability that is needed for for industry level things. And so I think that creates a real opening for us to push through with novel techniques and with novel ideas. I think there is a window here before people suddenly say, no, these guys are just blowing hot air, and it's not going to do all the things that we want to do with it. But I think there's a real opportunity here to push some of these technologies into the real world.
So what you're saying really is that it's not there yet. We need to fix it, but it's escaping into society. It's really good for some applications. It's not good for others. And there's an opportunity for more research to fix it. And for example, Daniela's amazing presentation on liquid neural networks. Liquid time, what? Liquid time constant neural networks, right? Is that what you're saying? So basically you're saying there's a window. But the fact is it's out there and people are getting worried and they're reacting and governments are regulating it on something that may be just the first indication of what this is capable of.
Yeah. And I think right now there is this rush of interest from this huge explosion in capabilities that we've seen. But I think also the reaction is that for a lot of important applications where precision really matters, where you really have to get things right, the tools that are there on offering are not quite enough, right? And
Genoa, your thoughts? Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. Talk about the impact on society, right? Maybe let me contrast between Chinese mentality versus American mentality on this, right? In terms of innovation, it's hard to say which is better. It's competing severely. But in terms of application, at the layperson level, I think China is way ahead of U.S. Let me give you an example. I went back to Qingdao, my hometown, in March. I'm treating my uncles for dinner. They are they're 78, 80. They guys, what are you guys talking about? They said, wow, this DeepSeek, this doesn't work. This is one, or all these ladies, they're talking about this on a daily basis. This, I mean, you can argue that DeepSeek have some misinformation. It's much better than reading social media posts on that, right? There is the penetration to the layperson level in China is almost complete. Like you talk about 1.4 billion people, everybody playing with Tudou, with this Doubao, with DeepSeek, they're all Chinese version of ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. on this, right? While in US, I mean, at MIT we talk about it, in Silicon Valley we talk about it, but if you go to most of the neighborhood, you talk to people, they're still kind of, there's something going on there, I'm not using it. While China, they penetrate to every single person's life on this. The second one, if you compare research entity competing, corporation competing, people, I just made major difference. Another big difference is the government side. You can have a ridiculous US government, but in general, the lack of understanding or lack of attention throughout the federal, state, the municipal government. In contrast, let me tell you what Chinese government are doing there. Right? Chinese have this party system. Every organization have a party, a small team of a party unit. Every Thursday, they have a weekly party gathering. On that gathering, every single part unit are discussing, oh, how I should use AI, where can I train, how do I make my government process more efficient. This is penetrating to all the institutions in China on this. I think after a while, this will show a difference on that.
That's amazing, That's, you were just there, and I mean, you're saying this across society.
Exactly. It's everyone on this. Yeah, good.
Right.
Is it, do they actually understand? So this is really very interesting.
Yeah.
I just wonder, people talk about DeepSeek, and do they actually have an understanding of the technology, or what do they know about it?
Yeah, I don't think they understand the underpinning technology. They're just users. For example, many are telling me now I can demand my doctor just not fool around with me. Yeah. Okay, you give me a suggestion. I mean, that's not what it says on this, right? Give me more. So it empowers a lot of debate in that, right? Again, AI has a lot of problem, but that's much, much better in terms of quality than you get from the social media posts that everybody's reading on this. I think overall, it's a much better education and empower many people have a professional level discussion with each other.
I've got to tell you something hilarious. I will not name my colleagues. I was talking to two colleagues on the phone. They were sitting together. And as they were talking to me, a third voice joined. Okay? And one of them said, "Who was that?" And I could see them, I could hear them looking around. They didn't know that ChatGPT voice mode had been turned on, and they'd never used it before. And they were just freaked out. And I swear, I'm not making this up. One of them goes, "Is that a live voice?" It was just ChatGPT voice mode. Arjun, your thoughts?
Yeah, so since since the session is about embodied AI, I'll give you my thoughts. I'll start off by saying that, I'm a sort of a new convert to the religion of embodied AI, but unlike most new converts, I'm actually quite skeptical of this religion right now. And I think what we're witnessing right now is kind of like an embodied AI summer, but like everything else, you're going to get the embodied AI El Nino and the embodied AI winter. And after that, we're going to come back. So I personally think there are sort of 3 or 4 challenges in practical impact that through even the projects we're working on, we've learned. So first of all, one thing is, it's okay to say that all these transform models, et cetera, are able to do generalized reasoning. But I think there are a lot of use cases where the robot actually has to not just understand, but it has to work at human speed. So this is where human and robot collaboration is important, because, if I'm wanting a robot to cook with me, you don't want the robot like that to slice and julienne every onion and take like 6 hours to finish. So I think there is a speed mismatch that I don't think we've solved. The second thing is, I don't think enough people realize that embodied AI, is the point you were making, is really a multisensory activity. So, we talked about one of the things we're doing with the marine equipment repair, et cetera. We initially went in and we were thinking it's going to be, let's use LiDAR and let's use RGB cameras and recognize objects and so on. But it turns out, if you talk to the mechanics who are repairing, one of the very important modalities that they use for the repairing process is sound. Looking at the machinery and understanding the pitch and the frequency, et cetera. And that's not something that's being widely sort of incorporated in most models. And the last thing I would say is a lot of the reasoning right now is sort of a one-pass system, and then it'll give you guidance. Okay, put this nut over here and put this bolt on it. But what if you say, no, I can't, because the bolt is too wet or too hot? So there is a disruption in the current plan, and at that point the AI models typically tend to freeze. They don't have the ability to kind of pivot and take in the current unpredicted context and adapt to it. So I think these are some open challenges, which is good job for academics. I mean, I think we'll be in business for producing papers and rebutting each other for the next decade. But I do think that there is a winner coming, and the spring will come after that.
I wonder what the implications on societal acceptance, thinking what AI is going to be. Hi, your thoughts?
Yes, I want to contribute from a perspective of urban service and platforms. We need to care more about the interactions and coordination between human and AI. And by AI, I mean 2 types of AI. The first thing is the brain, like ChatGPT or some data-driven decision engines. And second is the embodied AI, like robots and autonomous systems which which help us to do some physical task. So to give a very specific example, let's say in the sharing transportation or cross-source deliveries, we have AI brains to help us optimize the platform operations, such as like matching orders with the drivers, such as like optimized delivery sequence for the drivers. But the drivers may or may not follow these recommendations. In this case, we need to think about the interactions, like what's the difference between human behavior and AI recommendation, why we have this difference, and how we can adapt the AI or motivate our human to reduce the difference. So that's one thing which is not technical problems, it's a human-centric problem. And for the interactions between embodied AI and human, we need to think about like how to divide the task among human and AI, such as like for the delivery things, how about the allocation for the first mile for pickup, the middle mile for transport, the last mile for drop-off, and how can we do the handovers between human and robots. And there is a very funny story actually in this area, I believe in San Francisco. A few years ago, when Cruise first introduced their autonomous vehicles on the street, because the cars can do autonomous driving, but cannot do autonomous door closing. So, like after the passenger leaves the car, they forget to close the door. The car is just stop there and do nothing. So there's a very funny scenario, like some police officer in San Francisco just see some cars parking there for 20 minutes and do nothing. And then the police officers go to the car and dial some numbers and remotely talk with a Cruise person like, hey, what's your car doing here? Why not pay the parking meters? And the Cruise person say, actually, could you help us to close the door? Yeah. So we see some very funny scenario, like the police officers in San Francisco work as volunteer door closing staff for Cruise and Waymo. So you see, there are many such kind of unexpected story and problems when we think about like the interactions between embodied AI and human. And this is something we need to, as a group, collectively work on. Yeah.
So that means that actually, if you wanted to be provocative, you just go open a bunch of doors because they're a complete traffic jam, right?
Right, yes.
Right. So that's interesting. So we've, the spectrum between research stuff that's very cutting edge, not there yet, societal acceptance. I mean, we're doing it all in one go. Usually we have, technologies take some time to penetrate, and when they land, they're sort of in your iPhone, or for those of you who use Android phones, I feel bad for you, Android phones, etc., right? But then it's productized. But here it's sort of coming out half-baked. Some of it is fully baked. Some of it is interactions you didn't intend, right? I mean, if I'm driving a regular old internal combustion engine manually, there may be someone next to me in a self-driving car, looking at Instagram. I didn't bargain for that, but they're there, right? So it's sort of a very interesting new mixed world. Audience, yeah. So we have a question here, Alok. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So I actually wanted to address something that Professor Wang Hai, you mentioned about the dangers of, because I do a lot of research. Oh, sorry, pardon. Sorry, 不好意思. Sorry. Professor Zhao, sorry, on the disinformation, because I do research on disinformation and misinformation, and you mentioned earlier about that it's safer, looking for information from DeepSeek would be safer, quote unquote, than looking for information on social media. But what we have found is that on social media, because that information is made public, if there is something fake or something incorrect that is being transmitted, usually the governments can put pressure on social media, in some countries, not in all, put pressure on the social media platforms to take down that information. Whereas on AI platforms, it's hidden. You can't see that disinformation and misinformation until somebody asks the question and says, is 1 + 1 equal to 3? And then if DeepSeek says yes, 1 + 1 is equal to 3, only that one person will see that. Whereas if you put 1 + 1 equals to 3 on social media, everybody can see it. So it's easier to bring down. So that's why my concern is really disinformation and misinformation via large language models is going to be a far more dangerous problem. So I just wanted to hear
That's
your
a
thoughts on
fascinating
that.
comment, yeah. You're going to say, Amanda, you're going to say something, it looks like.
I mean,
I'm going to put you on the spot. If you weren't, you're going to say something now.
This is one of the challenges with these large models, right? That you have this sort of infinity of behaviors, and it's very hard to surface. This is why, for example, when people are looking at model security, right? It's such a game of whack-a-mole. I don't think we have a good answer for this, especially when you're dealing with human interactions, where it's very difficult to impose some formal structure in it.
So it's sort of interesting. I mean, to your point, some of the guardrails that we can put in are going to be very flawed. Now, I find that if you go to ChatGPT and say, generate an image of people in a meeting, right? It'll generate a very diverse image, But then if you say, generate an image of people in a meeting, but they're all restaurant workers, okay? So you distract it with restaurant workers. You'll have a bunch of, white people, because it's forgotten that it's got to be diverse. We got distracted by restaurant workers. So to your point, it's in a very infinite space to explore. And so can guardrails even work as we unleash this into society? They're not working.
We are compared two evils here,
You have a
right?
question there, by the way.
I just say, at least as of now, practically, I do think ChatGPT's quality of information is better than the social media. Because in ChatGPT,
that's not saying much, but anyway.
But the social media, it could be totally totally kind of fantastical almost from this, right? But seriously, talk about the information governance issue here, right? On the social media, the big problem is you cannot target a responsible person. Facebook and Twitter said, no, I'm just a white paper. People write on that. I cannot be responsible for that, right? That's the argument for a long time from there. They are trying, but look at the result. Is it effective? Do you think the social media, after all this effort, are getting any better in the quality of the information? No, I don't think so. Yeah. But that's not to say IOMI can solve that easily, right? On that, but first of all, you have a direct responsible agent. That's a start point. So the government have a target on that. Secondly, I do not think the government have enough technical capacity to really govern at the technical level here. That's where you need an auditing system. That's the same thing in finance, right? SEC does not have the capability to check each of the company, but they develop the whole auditing industry so that can balance each other out. So one high-tech company should be the auditor for the other high-tech company. Then we have some hope to make this. So the government job is setting up this governing framework, but the technical work should be done between the industry, between the players on that.
Right, although you just legalized distilling by saying that. Right. There was a question there.
Thank you so much for the discussion. Just a brief comment about it. When first GPS and Google Maps came out, there were wrong directions given, and people would follow them to the valleys down the hill. So then it comes to the responsibility part, like what Jinhua was mentioning as well. If each one needs to be individually responsible for their act and how closely they need to follow, and I think definitely it's going to be a challenge in terms of how we crowdsource the solution.
But I think there's there's a deeper, very beautiful point that just came out. One is the infinite degrees of freedom.
Yep.
Google Maps is basically a 2D graph, right?
Yeah.
And it can be fixed. Here it's an infinite. It's almost, it is infinite by definition, right? And so to root out all the errors is going to be very difficult, right? And we're going to discover some of them, like the open doors, right? Open door policy that you came up with. But we'll keep discovering them. It seems like there's all this emergent stuff, right? And the second is not verifiable. It's not observable, which is your point, which is a great point. I think there's a question back there from Shiva.
Yeah, thank you for some very great insights by all the speakers and the panelists. My question is about how would you reimagine embodied AI if you think of the concept of Neuralink I think you're probably familiar with Neuralink, Elon Musk's company. So would you think of Neuralink plus an Optimus, also another product? I mean, I'm coming from a Silicon Valley perspective. Would you think of that as an embodied AI? Would you think of Neuralink plus a human as an embodied AI? Would a human be an embodiment of AI rather than I mean, of course, there's a whole merit in optimizing your LLMs, VLMs, etc. But then why not use the human or any biological entity?
So I happen to work in that, and I'll take a first stab at it just to say that, first of all, since Elon Musk is taking care of it, I'm sure it'll be fine. I just want to explain that if you look at the human brain, I mean, for most of us, what we say goes through a lot of processing before we say it. You know, there's something called foot and mouth, right? We train not to do it. If you tap into some random part of the brain, the sort of junk, the unprocessed junk that you get, right? The 76 crazy thoughts before you think of the one thing you could say that is reasonable and guardrailed and acceptable, right? I worry. I worry about that.
I agree with this point. I mean, this whole limited bandwidth of human language, I mean, it's a problem, but it's also a great filter, a threshold to guard us, right? Through the process, we get civilized. We pay attention, what do we say? We think about what other people think about what do we say on this, right? Within Neuralink, that indeed is very dangerous on this. Yeah.
That said, I think there's a lot of opportunity for brain interfaces, something actually, Archun's group, Daniela's group, and my group are working on. And it's an exciting area. But again, we shouldn't worry because Elon's got it. Coming back to this, we have only a minute more. Maybe we'll close with some closing thoughts. The thing about embodied intelligence is exactly that, right? We're embodying something, at least if it was an information domain, there's only a certain amount of damage you can do, right? But once you start embodying, the research becomes very fundamentally important because our responsibility is much greater. Just your closing thoughts on that question. Do you want to start, Hai?
Yeah, I think to have a better integration or interactions or coordination between body AI and human, we may need a different set of evaluation metrics. For the general AI research and researcher, we focus more on efficiency, on cost, on computational speed, on accuracy. And maybe in the future, for a better co-evolution of human and embodied AI, if we have, maybe we need to define different metrics like what's the trust, what's the stability, what's the interpretability between human and AI. Yeah.
Perfect. Archun, we'll go in reverse order.
Yeah, so closing comment is I think with embodied AI and intelligence, you're going to have the human society is going to have a lower tolerance of the margin of error than when we do with disembodied intelligence. I mean, Hai is doing all this great work on, putting planes in gates. Sometimes I get down and I walk a kilometer and I think, what is Hai doing? But I have no way of proving that he's doing something wrong or it's not the appropriate choice. But when it comes to embodied things, it's something we see and feel. If you see the robot picking up your luggage and then, flipping it around a couple of times before it decides to stomp on it, something's wrong. So I think there's going to be a less tolerance of human beings for physical world manipulation.
Yeah, I'm more excited about using embodied AI to do science. I mentioned it briefly at the opening remark here, right? I'll give you an example. A typical protein, there's a 10 to 300 times power of possible combination there, right? We can't solve that problem, but nature solved it for us. The fact the protein exists means nature solved for it. So if we embody our AI in the nature, it can help us to learn on this, right? So that's the part I really feel excited about, the possibility there. Also, it directly helps test hypotheses, right? Whatever algorithm you put in the real, it failed. That's direct evidence to test your hypothesis. That's a good tool to use.
I think when, in a lot of the AI that we're familiar with these days, in some ways we're in the machine's turf, right? Machines are really good at logical reasoning. They're really good at, doing, capturing encyclopedic knowledge and aggregating it. Once we move to embodied AI, we're really in our turf, right? This is the thing that, we've been good at for millions of years. And so the bar of quality is really, really quite different. And I think it's sometimes easy to underestimate the challenge, just because we've done really well on other aspects. So the other thing is, when we think about embodied AI, we tend to think about the humanoid robot or this kind of application. But really, any situation where we have to interface with the real world, right? Whether it's at the micro level, whether we're thinking about proteins interacting in a cell. That's embodied AI too, and I think there's a lot of really exciting opportunities there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to our amazing panelists, and thank you to all of you. Off we go for lunch.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay.